The world went silent, not when I saw the kiss, but when I heard the whisper. It was our 10-year anniversary party. The sprawling brownstone in the heart of Atlanta was filled with the hot, dizzying light of celebration, the pounding rhythm of music, and the cloying, expensive scent of white roses and champagne. David, my husband, the man whose every gesture was calibrated for public applause, was holding court. His face, usually a mask of calm success, was alight with pride, a pride that felt hollow, like a gilded cage built around my life. I, Aisha, was smiling, a mechanical movement of the lips. Inside, a knot of cold dread had been tightening, a physical certainty that something was wrong, woven from weeks of quick, secretive glances between David and the one person who knew every fragile piece of my soul. That person was Lisa. Lisa, my best friend since we were 6 years old, 2 decades of shared secrets, scraped knees, first heartbreaks, and silent understanding. She was the one who held my hand when my father died. She was the one who helped me choose this house. Now she was standing in the shadows of my success, a viper waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I made my way to the shadowed hallway, pulling out my phone. It was heavy in my hand, not a tool for connection, but for cold surveillance. I was checking the hidden nanny cam feed. I had installed the camera 6 months ago. Not for a babysitter, but because of a single glaring anomaly in David's business ledger, a $50,000 discrepancy he couldn't explain. I started looking for financial fraud, and the camera, concealed beneath the largest white rose in the centerpiece, became my single, silent witness. The video feed snapped to life. The view was perfect. Lisa and David were alone by the kitchen island, a fortress of ferns and flowers shielding them from the crowd. Lisa reached up, her fingers lingering on the silk of David's tuxedo. He did not flinch. He leaned in, his usual expansive smile replaced by a look that was hungry, private, and terrifyingly complicit. Then the betrayal, quick, hard, and final. A kiss hidden from the room, glaringly clear on my phone screen. The air in my lungs turned to dust. The kiss was the initial shock, the physical blow. The whisper was the deep, fatal wound. Lisa pulled back, her eyes shining with a savage, triumphant light. She leaned close to David's ear, her lips almost touching his skin. The camera's sensitive microphone cut through the muffled party noise, isolating her voice, every syllable clear and cold, ringing the death knell of my life. She's done. He deserves better than you. The phone died. The screen went black, plunging my private viewing into darkness. I stood there, surrounded by the echoes of celebration. The kiss was pain, but the whisper was annihilation. He deserves better than you. After 20 years of shared history, she had judged me weak, insufficient, and disposable. She wasn't just stealing my husband, she was confirming the conspiracy I had suspected for months. They thought they had ruined me, but in that moment of absolute, complete betrayal, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. The tears were frozen. Instead, a cold, hard certainty settled in my chest. They had just signed their own death warrant. They had no idea that I held the keys to the kingdom, the secret deed, the controlling trust, and the crushing debt for everything they planned to steal. I walked back into the bright light, moving through the crowd as the perfect hostess. I smiled. I nodded. My movements were graceful, mechanical, every second a painful, silent lie. I waited until the last guest left, until the air was still and cold again. I cleaned the house, scrubbing away every trace of the party, the shattered glass, the fallen confetti, the faint poisonous scent of Lisa's perfume. I worked until 4 a.m. The only piece of evidence I kept was the hard drive, safely hidden in the basement vault. The camera hadn't just caught infidelity, it had caught the celebration of a premeditated financial conspiracy. The kiss was merely a reckless cover for the true, ugly prize they sought. Over the next 2 days, I lived a life of chilling dual reality. David was overly kind, bringing me coffee, talking loudly about the big, risky investment Lisa had just brought him, the deal that was going to make us rich. I smiled, nodded, and kept my eyes on my second, secret laptop, running final calculations. David was waiting for the emotional explosion, the messy confrontation he could use as an excuse. I gave him nothing but serene, cold compliance. I had been waiting for months. David had made his first big mistake, not with a kiss, but with a wire transfer. $200,000 sent to an offshore account in an identity I couldn't trace. That was the moment I started the nanny cam and initiated my counterplan. I had suspected he was trying to liquidate our assets. What I hadn't known was that Lisa was the architect of his demise. I remembered the quiet, agonizing work of setting up the blind trust. David thought he was too smart to fail. 5 years ago, when we bought the house, I used my inheritance, the money my father insisted I keep untouchable, to pay the entire mortgage in cash. David signed documents for a creative financing firm that was really just a shell company I controlled. I let him make the monthly payments that only covered the property taxes and insurance, while the deed rested securely in my name, shielded by a prenuptial clause that activated upon fraud or abandonment. Now David's pride was focused on the big investment, the deal he believed would launch his empire. I ran the numbers. The investment wasn't his, it was Mark's. Mark, Lisa's quiet, hard-working husband, had spent 2 years perfecting a groundbreaking patent. David was supposed to be the financial advisor, securing legitimate capital. Instead, he and Lisa were diverting Mark's initial $2 million funding into the untraceable offshore account, the same account David started 6 months ago. The kiss and the whisper, "She's done," were timed to finalize the heist. They were going to leave us both with nothing but ruined marriages and massive debt. The moment the numbers confirmed the theft, the last piece of buried pain in my heart crystallized into absolute necessary focus. I was ready. I retrieved the hard drive, loaded the kiss and the devastating whisper onto the new cheap laptop. I sent the text to Mark, Lisa's husband. A simple, friendly-sounding invitation. "Mark, David's busy with that big investment deal. Want to come over for a quiet coffee tomorrow morning? I need to talk about Lisa." He replied instantly, "Be there at 9 a.m., Aisha. I've needed to talk about Lisa too." That quick acceptance, the shared need for release, was the first sign that I was not alone in my suspicions. Mark arrived promptly. The house felt empty, cold, and vast. David was safely out, chasing the phantom meeting I had created. Mark, kind and quiet, sat on the sofa. I did not waste time with comfort or small talk. I placed the small laptop on the coffee table. I dimmed the overhead light, creating a stark pool of light around the screen. I pressed play. We watched the tape, the ambiance of the party, the beautiful roses, the ugly secret kiss. Mark sat motionless, his face a study in profound, quiet destruction. He didn't cover his mouth, he didn't move. It was as if he was confirming a terrible truth he had already felt in his bones. Then, the amplified whisper, "She's done. He deserves better than you." The video ended. The screen went dark. Mark slowly reached for his cold coffee cup. He took a sip, his hand perfectly steady. When he finally looked at me, there was no shock over the infidelity. There was only chilling, analytical understanding. "She's not talking about the marriage, is she, Aisha?" Mark's voice was a low, even rumble. "The done part. She's talking about the patent." I froze. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at him, unable to speak. Mark, the silent, unassuming husband, knew the true magnitude of the betrayal. "I haven't told anyone about the patent's full valuation," Mark continued, his eyes meeting mine. "But I've been tracking the escrow account." It was supposed to be a legitimate investment firm securing the second round of funding. David insisted on handling the initial $2 million transfer personally. I knew it was wrong when he kept diverting my questions about the final account recipient. "She's saying that my business is done, and David deserves better access to the stolen investment capital she was moving." The betrayal hit me again. deeper this time. It wasn't reckless passion. It was meticulous, financial execution. The $2 million was not just a side hustle. It was Mark's life's work, and they were stealing it all. I pulled out my private laptop, showing him the complex web of trusts and deeds. David thinks he is the owner of this house. He is wrong. I paid cash for it 5 years ago. He is wrong about his business. I secretly maintained his emergency line of credit. I zoomed in on the transfer details for the stolen $2 million. The money they are trying to seize from your patent investment is flowing through a blind trust. A trust that I, Aisha, secretly owned and controlled since the beginning of his business. I am the firewall. Mark's gaze hardened. He was no longer the victim. He was a silent partner in the same war I was fighting. I explained the plan. The transfer is set to clear in 1 hour. When David and Lisa finalize their move, the money won't go to their offshore account. It will hit my blind trust's account first, the legal controlled entity, and immediately bounce back to its originating account, your account, Mark, with a notification that the receiving party has been frozen due to suspected financial fraud. We had everything: the video of the kiss and the conspiracy, the paper trail of the attempted fraudulent transfer, and the testimony of Mark, the primary victim. David and Lisa were not just going to face divorce, they were facing criminal charges. Mark stood looking out the window for a long time. The golden morning light made the street look impossibly peaceful, a deceptive calm before the storm. He didn't speak about sorrow. He walked back to the coffee table, placed his hand on the laptop screen, covering the image of their triumphant, ruined faces. He looked at me, Aisha, the woman of silent resolve, and he said the only thing that mattered, the one line that finalized our deadly, absolute alliance. We should have done this a year ago. I nodded. The silent agreement was sealed. We were partners in the quiet, necessary destruction of the world they built on our backs. I stood up. I walked to the front closet and retrieved 2 briefcases. Inside each were the finalized documents: divorce papers, restraining orders, and the police report filed this morning detailing the financial conspiracy and the attempted theft. The final hour was upon us. We walked out the front door together, 2 quiet, elegantly dressed people stepping into the afternoon sun. We drove downtown, weaving through the thick midday traffic of Atlanta. The radio played a bright, forgettable pop song. We didn't exchange a word. Every movement, every moment of silence was charged with the knowledge of what was to come. We arrived at the luxury hotel downtown, the very place David and Lisa planned to celebrate their successful heist. The lobby was grand, marble and glass reflecting the city's indifferent sprawl. Mark and I moved through it, 2 silent shadows of inevitable justice. In a private meeting room, the final stage was set. 2 police detectives stood in the corner, quiet and professional. Our 2 legal teams, Mr. Harris and Mark's own attorney, waited with stacks of documents. David and Lisa entered, full of their false triumph. They were laughing. Lisa, wearing a new stunning blue dress, looked directly at me. Her smile faltered slightly, but quickly hardened into disdain. David, adjusting his tie, looked past Mark and me with contemptuous dismissal. They thought we were here for a weak, final plea. They thought they were about to walk away rich, free, and victorious. They sat across the massive conference table. David spoke first, his voice dripping with condescending pity. "Aisha, you shouldn't have come. We can discuss the terms later. This is a business meeting." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I made eye contact with Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris slid the first document across the table. It was the police report, detailing the wire fraud attempt that had just occurred. David picked it up, his face falling into confusion. Lisa leaned over his shoulder, her brow furrowing. Before they could react, Mark slid the second document, the official notification from the Blind Trust confirming the $2 million had bounced back to his account due to suspected criminal activity. David looked at me, then at Mark, his mouth opening, his eyes wide with a dawning, terrible horror. What is this? This is impossible. The funds cleared hours ago. The final document slid across the table placed by my own hand. It was the full 100-page deed to the brownstone, listing me, Aisha, as the sole owner. The police detectives stepped forward. Their presence, quiet but absolute, was the final crushing blow. David, realizing the truth, that his entire empire was built on my money and managed by my silent structures, slumped back in his chair, his ambition instantly deflated, replaced by the terror of ruin. Lisa's face, however, twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. She looked at me, not with defeat, but with the searing rage of a viper who had missed its strike. She opened her mouth to scream, but the police officer's calm, authoritative voice cut her off, explaining the charges. I stood up. I walked to the end of the table. I did not utter a single word. I simply reached into my purse and pulled out the hard drive. I placed it on the table right between David and Lisa. They both stared at it, the small, cold piece of technology containing the definitive proof of their kiss and their cruel, condemning whisper. I turned and walked away. Mark followed, his silence a shared shield. The noise behind us, Lisa's choked gasp, David's sudden helpless denial, was muted, distant. Their destruction was complete. Their lives, built on greed and betrayal, had collapsed into debt and criminal charges. We stepped back out into the sun. I looked at Mark. He gave me a single slow nod of respect and finality. We went our separate ways, two people forever bonded by the beautiful, terrible precision of their shared vengeance. I had lost a husband and a best friend, but I had gained my freedom, my fortune, and the deep, abiding knowledge that I was the force that controlled my own destiny. The revenge was complete. The freedom was absolute. Thank you for watching, dear lovers. If this story of hidden strength and ultimate vindication resonated with you, hit the like button and subscribe. Have you ever felt underestimated by those closest to you? Tell me your story of silent triumph in the comments below.